Good evening, and welcome to American Public Square's annual gala, Evening at the Square. I'm Alana Mueller, Senior Advisor and Board Member of APS, and I'm thrilled to be here with our Executive Director and CEO, Claire Bishop.
Thank you, Alana. We're so excited to have you all here tonight to celebrate the work of American Public Square and our mission to improve the tone and quality of civil discourse.
Absolutely, Claire. Before we dive into the evening's festivities, we want to take a moment to recognize our incredible event co-chairs, David and Cynthia Westbrook, and Frank Lipsman and Janet Mark. Their hard work and dedication have been instrumental in making this event a success.
We also want to express our deepest gratitude to our top donors this year, David and Cynthia Westbrook, Susan Seidler Nerman, the McDonald Foundation, the Jack and Glenna Wiley Foundation, and Lee and Christy Smith. Your generous support enables us to continue our vital work.
At APS, we seek to build stronger, more connected communities through civil discourse, engagement, and education. Evening at the Square is a celebration of that work.
That's right, and we couldn't undertake this effort without the support of our members. If you're already a member, thank you for your commitment to our mission. If you're not yet a member, we invite you to join us. You can find membership information in your program booklet or visit us online at americanpublicsquare.org.
As we kick off tonight's program, please join us in thanking our event sponsors, co-chairs, and the entire APS team for their tireless efforts in making Evening at the Square an overwhelming success.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We look forward to an evening of inspiration, conversation, and celebration as we work together to strengthen our community through civil discourse. Welcome to Evening at the Square 2025.
Indeed. Welcome. Welcome to Evening at the Square. I can't tell you how delighted I am to see all of you. It's just remarkable. It's a full house, and I hope that you are already enjoying the evening. I want to kick us off. We have a very special presentation. You know, every year we have the honor of recognizing an exceptional individual who embodies the spirit of American Public Square, the spirit of civic engagement, community, and leadership, all values that we aspire to. This recognition is known as the Founders Civility Award. To learn more about our prestigious award and to discover this year's remarkable recipient, please turn your attention back to the screen.
Each year, I have the honor of presenting the Founders Civility Award. The Founders Civility Award was created several years ago to recognize the accomplishments of remarkable leaders who have demonstrated a commitment to bringing together our diverse community to engage in civil, fact-based dialogue, which is the essence of American Public Square. Past award recipients have included Reverend Adam Hamilton from Resurrection, a United Methodist church, our founding co-chairs Mary Block and former Leawood Mayor Peggy Dunn, our original champion Leo Morton, the inimitable Sue Ellen Freed, and one of the Kansas City Metro's most civically minded couples, Ramon and Sally Murguia. This year it gives me great joy to recognize Susan Seidler Nerman. Sue exemplifies the spirit of civic engagement and community leadership that American Public Square celebrates. Her strong belief in the values of truth, education, and the civil expression of ideas among every member of the community made her one of the founding members of American Public Square, where she has served on the board of directors and Evening at the Square host committees. Sue's philanthropic work and civic leadership extend across numerous organizations that strengthen our community. Additionally, Sue serves as vice chair for her family business board of directors and co-leads her family foundation. Sue is a proactive leader who seeks out opportunities to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others and the community as a whole. Her dedication and involvement with American Public Square have directly improved the tone and quality of civil, fact-based discourse on topics ranging from education to healthcare to truth in media. The Founders Civility Award recognizes not just Sue's accomplishments, but her embodiment of the values that make discourse possible. Her example inspires us all to engage in civil dialogue and work together to build a stronger, more united community. When I asked Sue to be our honoree, she told me she would rather not be recognized. I prevailed upon her to allow me to give her this honor, and though reluctant, she eventually agreed. It brings to mind the Talmudic saying, "Honor flees from those who seek it, and it seeks those who flee from it." Please join me in honoring Sue Seidler Nerman as this year's Founders Civility Award recipient.
All right, well, it's hard to follow that. Sue's such a champion and such a tremendous person, so congrats again to Sue. Now, it is my honor to introduce a very special recognition that holds deep meaning for all of us at American Public Square. As we come together this evening, we remember our dear friend, dedicated board member, and one of the earliest champions of our organization, Bill Kort. His unwavering commitment to service, his infectious sense of humor, and his steadfast integrity left an indelible mark on our community. To celebrate Bill's extraordinary legacy and to inspire others to follow in his footsteps, we are proud to present, for the first time, the William Kort Volunteer of the Year Award. Please turn your attention to the screen to learn more about this inaugural recognition and to join us in reflecting on the remarkable life and contributions of Bill Kort.
Good evening. As we gather for this year's evening at the Square, we take a moment to remember a dear friend and tireless champion of American Public Square, Bill Kort. I first met Bill when I returned to Kansas City in 2013. He was quick to welcome me to the area and immediately demonstrated his keen ability to bring people together in the spirit of service, commitment, and dedication to our community. To honor his legacy, we are proud to announce the creation of the William Kort Volunteer of the Year Award.
This award celebrates individuals and organizations whose sustained civic leadership and volunteer service embody Bill's spirit. They inspire collaboration, mobilize others to create and sustain vital community institutions, and contribute their time, expertise, and perspective in ways that leave a lasting impact.
American Public Square held a special place in Bill's heart. He believed deeply in its mission of fostering civil discourse and understanding. As co-chairs of last year's evening at the Square, Bill and I saw firsthand the power of bringing people together to engage in meaningful dialogue. I was honored when Ellen asked me to serve in Bill's seat on the APS board after his passing. Bill's commitment to service, his sense of humor, and his integrity continue to guide us as we carry forward his legacy.
Tonight, in addition to launching the creation of this annual recognition, we are honored to present the inaugural William Kort Volunteer of the Year Award posthumously to Bill himself.
His legacy will continue to shape our work and our community for years to come. We hope this award will inspire others to follow in Bill's footsteps and contribute to the community through civic leadership and volunteer service.
Speaking on behalf of myself and our extended family, we are deeply grateful to so many of you who contributed generously to this year's evening at the Square in Bill's honor. It means so much to us all, and we are touched by this award that honors Bill's memory.
Thank you to the entire American Public Square community for your support and dedication to our mission. If you know a community member whose volunteer service deserves recognition, look for information in the coming months about how you can nominate candidates for next year's William Kort Volunteer of the Year Award.
Hello, I'm Bill's daughter, Ellie, and joining me are my twin sister, Rachel, our niece, Sydney, and my beautiful mother, Regina. On behalf of my family, thank you for this honor, and for remembering my dad in a way that reflects who he was at his core. If he were here, he would be giving that mustachioed smile and probably asking whether the food tonight is served piping hot. My dad loved a good conversation on any topic, especially about the stock market and politics. He loved expressing his ideas and listening to other point of views, even if he did not agree with them. The mission of American Public Square meant a great deal to him, and he loved telling people about this important organization. Dad was a dapper dresser, another way he expressed his personality. The Brooks Brothers suits, the khakis, the penny loafers, the bow ties, like the one I'm wearing from his collection, and of course, the Sambas tennis shoes that upgraded him to the coolest grandfather in Kansas City. Right, Sid? Oh, yeah. He cared about how he showed up in the world, and not just in fashion. He tried to show up with love and gratitude. My dad once wrote to us that life is for the living, so get on with it. After loss, the task is to keep loving each other and to get on with the work of being human. We are here for a short time, and how we choose to live matters. Thank you, APS, for honoring him and for carrying forward the spirit of what he believed.
Thank you so much. Bill would be so proud.
Trying to say something? Wait, do we need to get a photo?
I don't know where okay, let's come over for a photo. Come on. It's photo time, sorry.
Right?
Yeah, I told him.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ryan Bernstein, and I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight. For those of you who don't know, during the day, I have the pleasure of serving as American Public Square's Director of Brand and Partnerships, but tonight I will be serving in a different role, your roving reporter. So for those of you who have attended our events in the past, this question card might look a little bit familiar, and you might have been given one on your way into the auditorium tonight. This is your opportunity to engage directly with our featured panelists. If you have a question, please write it down, hold it up, and one of our volunteers will come collect it. They will bring your questions to me, and I will select the most thought-provoking and representative ones from the bunch and ask to our guests. So please share your questions and potentially recommendations of things to do in Kansas City for Governor Sununu. All right, with that, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage our honorary co-chairs, David and Cynthia Westbrook, and Janet, Mark, and Frank Lipsman. Let's give them a round of applause.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to take just one moment to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. When Alan Katz was told, our founder, Alan Katz, was told by our friend Alana that I would be willing not only to give money, but maybe to make remarks, Alan said, think twice about asking him for money. I promised Alan that I would keep my remarks to 2 minutes, and he knows I've never told him the truth. All kidding aside, this is an important evening for Cynthia and me, for Frank and Janet. This is an important evening because we celebrate tonight the founding of our nation, invented by Jefferson when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. He talked about liberty, he talked about equality of opportunity as our important values, but he talked most importantly of all about self-evidence, about the idea that human beings who've been here 2 million years have the capacity to think and on occasion take responsible actions on their thinking. And over those 2 million years, for the past 250, we have this extraordinary experiment called American democracy. American democracy requires an opportunity for us to engage. American Public Square is all about engagement. Today, we worry about tyranny. We worry about the tyranny not of the monarch that Jefferson wrote about, or the tyranny of dictatorship, or the tyranny even of dynasty. The most threatening tyranny to our community is the tyranny of apathy. I know you agree with me, otherwise you wouldn't be here. It is not the people who are here in this room who may differ in certain opinions that we care about, but it's the people who are at home. We don't worry about the fact that they are at home, and we don't quibble over their point of view. We worry that they are not engaged. When cynicism teams up with apathy, democracy is threatened. So your engagement is really important. Your contribution by being here, your money, your time, your talent, your willingness to talk about this organization and build it are all important characteristics so that our democracy, our community, our livelihood will continue to flourish. That's why Cynthia and I are so committed to this program. And that's why we are so humbled by your presence and why I thank you so very much.
Hello, I'm Janet Mark, and I'm delighted to serve alongside David and Cynthia and my husband Frank as a co-chair of this event. It is my honor to introduce Margaret Talev, a distinguished journalist and the Kramer Director of the Syracuse University Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship. Margaret recently joined Syracuse University after an impressive 30-year career covering American politics and the White House. She has served as a senior White House correspondent for Bloomberg News and McClatchy newspapers, where she was part of a team that won the prestigious Scripps Howard Raymond Clapper Memorial Award for exposing the politicization of the Justice Department. Throughout her career, Margaret has covered multiple campaigns and administrations, including those of President Trump, Hillary Clinton, and President Obama. She has held several positions at several major news outlets and is a past president of the White House Correspondents Association and the Washington Press Club Foundation. In addition to her role at Syracuse University, Margaret is a senior contributor at Axios, a CNN political analyst, and serves on the American Public Square National Steering Committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Lipsman, and I'm honored to also serve as a co-chair for tonight's program. It's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest, former New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. Governor Sununu served 4 terms as the 82nd governor of the state of New Hampshire before returning to the private sector in January 2025. He is widely recognized as a national leader for his common sense approach to government and his ability to navigate polarized political waters. Under his leadership, New Hampshire was ranked as one of the best states for business and growth, #1 for personal and economic freedoms, and most notably, #1 for the best return on taxpayer investment, making it the most efficient government in America. Governor Sununu has appeared in over 1,000 nationally televised interviews and has spoken to hundreds of organizations across the country. He worked closely with both the Trump and Biden administrations, demonstrating his balanced political approach. Please join me in welcoming Governor Chris Sununu and Margaret Talev to the stage.
By the way, the most efficient government in the country is like being the best surfer in Kansas. So let's just start right there. Let's understand where the bar is. I just thought that was a pretty interesting part of the intro.
Good evening, everyone. It is great to see all of you again. And Governor, welcome to Kansas City.
I love it. I've been here almost 24 hours. I'm a big fan. Although I haven't been to a restaurant yet. You guys have had me quite busy with my schedule, so I haven't been able to partake in the best of Kansas City just yet.
You think if someone spends, a life or a good part of their life in politics that they've literally been everywhere, but when you're a governor, it's not the same thing as like being...
No, governors are politicians that actually do work, as opposed to Washington, D.C. We actually have a job.
You're in your own state a lot. So Ryan was sort of alluding to this, but as you write down your questions, one thing, in light of your new job, which will allow you to travel to Kansas City free whenever you have time, we'll get to that in a second, if you jot down on your card your best advice on one thing to do that's not obvious in Kansas City, or it can be obvious, I guess, but like your favorite, the best thing for an out-of-towner to do if they have 24 hours in Kansas City, one thing plus your question, that would be great. Okay, so in the meantime, most people here know of you as the Republican former governor of New Hampshire, but you do have a new role. Earlier this year, you became president and CEO of Airlines for America. Nothing going on in the airline industry this year. So I guess what I want to know is, in the past few months, how has this new role shaped your views on partisan politics, and what do you think the airlines can teach politicians about how to get things done?
I'm only on the job like 3 months. That's a big question. Well, first, it's great to be here. Thank you guys very much for the invitation. A couple things. So yeah, let's start at the end. I won't bore you with the whole story. Someone fairly prominent in the airline industry called me in July and asked me to do this, and I said, I have no idea how the airline industry works. I don't know why you're calling me. They went through it, and they explained it. Long story short, I took the job where I run the association for all the major airlines, the good ones, in Washington, D.C. So I guess to answer that question is, I'm really a cynic on Washington, D.C. I would traditionally go down and rip on Washington because I don't think they do enough. I don't think they do their job. They spend too much time raising money and getting reelected, and they've really set the bar incredibly low in terms of actually doing things. And as a public servant, as someone who's trying to earn the public trust and has earned it through their election, I just think that it has to be a much higher standard spent. I get paid very well by Airlines for America, and I'm loving Washington now, because that's my job. So I'm down there. I will say this, I say that as a joke, but I probably have grown, even in just a few months, an appreciation for not just how it works, but the dynamics. It's been tough because I took the job and 2 weeks later there was a shutdown, and the airlines are always at the tip of the spear, not to their own fault, but they are kind of used as a political ping pong ball. How much pain can we all withstand by having travel and not paying air traffic controllers and all that sort of thing? So it's been a bit of a trial by fire. I love the association, but it is definitely ingrained, putting me smack dab in Washington. At least it's on the private sector side. I was asked to run for Senate and all that, and I kept refusing because, again, I didn't want to do that. Someone said to me, don't you want to be a U.S. Senator? Like, in New Hampshire, I had to get elected every 2 years. And they said, you only have to get elected every 6 years as a senator. It'll be great. I said, oh my God, what a disaster. Because within 6 days, I'm going to be so ticked off that you guys don't do enough, I'll be frustrated for the next 6 years. And I'll be trapped with you people. So I politely, told John Thune, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to move on.
And you politely told your brother it would be great if...
And I said to my brother, John, I got an idea. You should run for the Senate. So he's doing it. So, no, it's good.
There are, the one thing that strikes me about the airlines is that there's not that many places in politics where people can agree that it's nonpartisan. I mean, politics is kind of a partisan business. But there are things like in the world that we use that are nonpartisan, and like airlines kind of seems like one of them. Like
I do believe half of our our passengers are Democrat and half are Republican. Last time I checked,
Is
so
that a data
I'm pretty
point?
sure that's the case.
It also seems like these are like, what is it, about a half a dozen airlines, commercial airlines that you represent?
Yeah, nine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 6 passengers, and then I represent UPS, FedEx, and Alice.
Okay, ask him what Atlas is, but that's a different question. So, but they're all like competing with each other, right? Cutthroat.
Oh yeah.
Except for that they all have an association that represent each other. That seems like...
Yeah, well, you know, this is the funny thing about D.C. There's a lot of these associations, and I'm not a lobbyist, but I have lobbyists that work for me. And so, yeah, I have the very unique situation where every one of my members is on my board. I report to the CEOs of, the largest airlines in America, which is great because they're all really great people. And yes, they will fight tooth and nail for every last customer publicly, and they'll trash each other and the whole 9 yards. But behind the scenes, they work very well together, actually. they act, there's a lot of collegiality, which is exactly like Washington, D.C., by the way, right? Everyone's out front. They're screaming at each other. They're raising money on outrage and fear-mongering and all that sort of thing. And then you know what? Because you all have time on Friday nights. Here's a Friday night activity. Get a nice glass of whiskey, Rieger whiskey from Kansas City. Thank you very much. Which I loved, by the way. And sit down, and you know what you should do? Watch C-SPAN. Because they'll show repeats on Friday night, and you'll see like AOC down on the floor, and watch to see who she's talking to. She's chatting it up with all the Republicans, and the most staunch, extremists on the right, they'll be chatting it up with their Democrat friends. They kind of sit around and they're waiting for a vote, and they're just chatting away. And the C-SPAN cameras are probably the closest thing to seeing while you can't hear what they're saying, you can kind of see just them in their, you can see the creatures in their natural habitat. They don't realize the cameras are following them, right? But it's really kind of interesting, and I always found that fascinating. Now, don't get me wrong. There are folks in Washington that are super polarized, and I will not go to lunch with a Democrat, and I will not go to lunch with a Republican, and all that kind of stuff. But more than you think, they actually behind the scenes get along. Governors, I can just tell you, governors, all 50 governors, for the most part, I've had my issue with 2 historically, out of all the ones I served with, get along, Republican and Democrat, especially during COVID, right? During COVID, remember, the federal government kind of passed a couple bills and disappeared. Governors took charge of everything, and that's where we saw the red and blue states and all that. But every night, we were on the phone together, right? J.B. Pritzker would call and say, hey, Gov, I hear that you're doing this in New Hampshire. And Charlie Baker from Massachusetts would talk to Polis in Colorado and say, hey, how did you handle this? And, so we were all working kind of as a team behind the scenes because we were the ones really writing the playbook in terms of how to manage all that. So governors are CEOs, right? And so there's management to be shared. It's a 24/7 job. And Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, is a really good friend. I think he's a really, really good governor. I think he's going to run for president. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I don't know. But here's an example. When that tragedy, right, when we saw the tragedy where the boat hit the bridge in Baltimore, nobody called the senator. You call the governor. There's a shooting, there's a weather trade, whatever it is. It's the governors that get called. So the tough part for being a governor, but the best part is that your phone is on 24/7. The buck stops here. You're the one that's in charge of the National Guard, the state police, emergency management services, designing new systems. What does Congress and the Senate do? I'm going to be the real cynic now. They do 2 things. They approve or not approve of a policy, right? Agree or disagree on that. And then they approve or not approve of funding. But after that, they're kind of done. It's up to the governors and the mayors and the cities and towns to design the systems. We're putting $50 billion into mental health. So who's designing the system? What are the access points? Do families have access there? Is it in the schools? Is it going to be in rural America as well? Congress and Senate doesn't decide any of that.
I mean, they're supposed to have other roles: investigative, advise and consent, backstop against executive power.
And there's some of that, but now it's more political, right? Unfortunately. It's more, they use those powers more politically than anything, but in terms of providing service, delivering for the constituents, connecting with folks, listening to the stories, finding out what works and doesn't work, figuring out where those barriers are and breaking them down. I would argue any day of the week it's the mayors, the governors, and not so much the president, but the mayors and the governors especially that are the ones that are on that. And I think that's awesome. I just wish Congress got more involved in that. Congress got more involved in what was truly happening on the ground outside the Beltway.
Okay, so just so you guys know, sometimes we do a format where we just talk and then we take your questions, but we wanted to mix it up a little bit tonight. So as you're forwarding your questions, I'm going to mix your questions in with mine for this conversation. So feel free to be as direct or spicy or put him on the spot as much as you guys want to tonight. as we get ready to do that, you made headlines a couple years ago at a dinner that I happened to be at. By the way, everyone got COVID at this dinner. I think you got COVID too, didn't you?
Is this the Gridiron?
It was the Gridiron dinner.
Oh,
Yeah, oh, God, it was just a wipeout. But anyway, I've had it 4 times, so I don't care anymore. But
there were 1,000 people in this room.
yeah, like 600 people went down. It was all everyone
media.
survived, but it was bad. It was post-vaccine, thank goodness. Anyway, the other thing, other than the COVID spread, that was memorable about the dinner was that you called then ex-president Donald Trump effing crazy and said he would never get elected again. And then...
It was pretty funny.
And then you backed Nikki Haley for president. And this group, this audience before us tonight, is all about, obviously, civic engagement, including the idea that there's value in engaging with people with whom you may disagree or even dislike, and vice versa. So my question is, how have you navigated that space in the time since then, including now, and how's that going for you?
Okay, so let's be fair. It's going great, actually. So let's be fair. The Gridiron is a roast.
Okay, but still.
It's comedy.
Okay.
You're up there to make jokes. And yes, it was
Okay,
a
you were
roast.
you were
And it was a
joking?
great joke, and the crowd went wild, and I got a great response. And I made a lot of jokes about him, and I made jokes about myself, and I made jokes about Democrats and Republicans. You make jokes about everybody. So, I called him effing crazy. And yes, I backed Nikki Haley, especially in the First in the Nation primary. And we should talk about why the First in the Nation primary is so, important and all that sort of thing. And so my theory at the time, I'm always about moving forward. I'm super optimistic. I'm always about moving forward. I'm always about the next generation. I believe in, although New Hampshire doesn't have term limits because we kind of don't need them because nobody wants to stick around. It's public service, not public career. We kind of get that where I come from. I wish more people did. And I think there should be term limits in Washington, right? So I'm always looking to move things forward. Trump had done his 4 years. I worked very well with him. We agreed sometimes. We disagreed. I had a style with the president in the first term that I think worked well. When he said something that I vehemently disagreed with, I wouldn't just go out and blast him in the media for the sake of doing it. I'd call the White House. I'd say, sir, you just said this. In 20 minutes, I'm saying that. And I hope you understand why, because it's happening. And he's, I get it. And so we had a kind of respect and understanding. I didn't agree with everything he did, but we got along and we were able to work. He created some opportunities with the opioid crisis that I was dealing with and all that. So we had a good relationship. And once he left, I said, okay, well, that's that. We're moving on as a party. We got to move forward. We have all these other great candidates, right? We don't just have to keep going back to the well. And my theory was if you narrow it down to a one-on-one race, at the time, Trump was polling at about 40%. So I said, okay, if we can get that to a one-on-one race and he stays at 40%, someone else is going to have the other 60% of the party. And we can move on and just, put that in the rearview mirror, no big deal. And it didn't work out like that. It just didn't work out like that for a whole variety of reasons. But I backed Nikki Haley. We got it down to a one-on-one race. I campaigned with all the candidates in New Hampshire. I campaigned with Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki and everybody because I believe that campaigning, real retail campaigning, especially in a place like New Hampshire, is so important for the process. I believe in it very strongly. And I wanted New Hampshire to be that, continue to be, as it has been for the last 100 years, that very unique place where it doesn't matter how much money you have or name ID, everyone's got a shot. And where people said, well, there's no shot to beat Trump, we actually made it a shot. Nikki didn't win New Hampshire. She came really close, about 7 points off or something. And then because, South Carolina has a very low voter turnout. It just didn't work for her. Okay, fine. So we kind of moved on, and obviously we know what happened in that election. So the key to anything, whether it's dealing with President Trump or dealing with your spouse or your family or your business, I believe is being super transparent, super open, and not trying to surprise people for the sake of surprising them so you get a good headline. It's really about saying, look, I disagreed with what you said. Here's why. Here's what I have to defend. Here's what my priorities are, and here's where I'm going with it. And if you have a conversation before you just go out and blast people for the sake of blasting them, it usually works out pretty well. And so that's it. I was just very transparent. I try to be. I call the balls and strikes like I see them. I'm super critical of Democrats. I'm super critical of Republicans that disagree with. I've had Republican legislatures, Democrats. So the whole point is this: if everyone, I think, has that approach, it'll all work better. But we've created a system, unfortunately, where too many people raise money, raise their profile, I mean, let's talk, someone mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene earlier, right? So Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving Congress. I can't tell you a single thing is there a Marjorie Taylor Greene bill that I'm not aware of? Like, did she pass something? I don't know what she's ever done, but she's raised gobs of money and become a national voice and leader without ever really accomplishing anything other than having Donald Trump's cell number. So, and there's folks on the other side that do the same thing. They don't really accomplish much. They just kind of scream and shout and raise money off it. And unfortunately, we've created a system that feeds into exactly what we're talking about here, to the discourse, the uncivility. And there's ways to fix that. There really are. And I'm an optimist that we can get there. But we're going through a little bit of a rough patch. I'm an engineer by trade. I was a civil and environmental engineer for about 10 years. I saw Leo Morton here, my fellow MIT engineer, is out there somewhere. God bless him. But everything comes in cycles, right? So, if you say, things are terrible and it's not going well, by the way, things aren't terrible. But, things go down, things go up, things go down. You got to ride these waves out over cycles and constantly build for the long term.
As we go to the first question, just to close the loop on this, it sounds like you and the current administration have been able to get past the epic dinner of 2022, and you can...
Yeah, so Trump is transactional. So after Nikki, after I endorsed Nikki, he was very, 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 very upset with me. But he was upset with everybody at one point or another. And that's fine. We kind of moved on. And then earlier this year, they wanted me to run for the U.S. Senate. So he called me, invited me down, wanted me to run, and I politely thought about it, but I politely said no. But, it was good. He invited me into the Oval Office, and we had a nice discussion, and we shared a Diet Coke at the Resolute desk. We tried to talk mostly about the things we agreed on.
So how long was the conversation?
It went well. Until he brought up tariffs, it went well.
Yeah.
How long was it?
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. There's a stark difference, and I can tell you firsthand, the stark difference between him in the second versus the first term. First, I would argue in the first term, if you had a 10-minute conversation with the president, 8 minutes were him talking at you. And he was ba 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 ba. Okay. And you got a few words in edgewise, and then you were moving on. This time, and I don't know what it is, he's been there, his age, whatever it is, he was asking questions. He was engaging the conversation. It was almost a half-hour conversation. He wanted me to show me around the office because he had just decorated the office.
Some stuff, yeah.
Which is a whole thing.
Yeah.
Here's one. This is a true story. He at one point he goes, because he knows I love Ronald Reagan, and he loves Ronald Reagan. And he said, well, Gov, what do you think? And he's sitting at the desk looking out, and I'm right in front of him facing the Resolute desk this way. And behind me was George Washington. Not George Bush. He wasn't going to hang George Bush. I'd hang George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
But was Washington, and behind him was Reagan. He said, what do you think? I was going to put Reagan there, and I was going to put Washington here. Like, did I do this right? Do you think should I switch these? I keep deciding I should switch them. And I said, sir, I hear you're going to make a big announcement on tariffs in just a few days. He said, yeah, that's right. I said, well, I'm a free market guy, as was Ronald Reagan. So I want Ronald Reagan looking over your shoulder at all times. And he laughed, he got the joke, and we kind of moved on from it. So he's a little different this time around. He really is. He has a much more professional team. I'm not here defending Trump by any means, but just so folks understand some of the differences first to second term. Oh, there's some civility for you. What the hell's the matter with you? Give me a break. No, yeah, there you go. So he definitely has a much more professional. I would argue Susie Wiles is the best chief of staff he's ever had. She's controlled, best that he's had. Tell me who's better. Tell me who's better than her for his chief of staff. See, I think she's the best. She's controlling and modulating a little bit. He's moving super fast. Do we agree with everything he's doing? No, I don't agree with everything he's doing. But he basically said, look, Washington's broken. And why is it broken? Because they get away with doing nothing. Nothing. They've set the bar so low, all they really do is pass about 12 appropriation bills because they won't balance a budget and they don't pass a budget. They shove a couple things in those appropriation bills. And he learned that the first term. And he said, look, you guys don't move fast enough. I'm going. We want to fix this country. I'm going.
So saying if Congress did more, Trump would be able to do less.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And that's why I should encourage. Look, I used to say fire them all when it came to the U.S. Senate, right? We talked about this today. If you fired every U.S. senator today and replaced them with 100 randomly chosen working adults in America, is it going to be worse? Are they going to get less done? God, no. No. In fact, I would argue that they're going to get so much more done because they're going to go in with the right mindset, coming from the private sector, understanding what their community needs are, and understanding where this country needs to go, and not just counting on getting, raising a bunch of money and getting reelected again. So I just would argue that they've set the bar incredibly low. He understands that, and I don't agree with everything he's doing, but this is why he's going so fast and why he's breaking a lot of China while he does it.
Okay, amazing. Ryan, take it away.
Well, we've already had a civility bell rung, and I just want to let you know that these question cards are adorable. The local recommendations are off the charts. Truman Library, the Rabbit Hole Museum of Children's Books. You're going to have a great tour here. So I'm going to start with a spicy question couched in a less spicy question. We wanted it spicy, right, Margaret?
It's like asparagus dipped in chocolate.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
That sounds terrible. All right, let's do it.
So you mentioned nothing getting done because running loses out to raising money. Thoughts on campaign finance reform as an issue?
And man, they stole my next question.
The spicy question is, how much has your net worth increased while serving as governor of New Hampshire?
My net worth?
Your net worth?
Oh, it got crushed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, look, one of the hardest parts about being governor is, I made $130,000 a year, but that meant it was really hard for my wife to have a job as the first lady. And I could pay my mortgage, and I'm saving for my kids to go to college and all that, but I don't make a penny personally in politics. That's why I got out of politics. It is. I make a ton of money right now in the private sector. It's wonderful, but being governor was the highest paying job I've ever had, and it was fine, but $130,000 a year. I don't know. It doesn't go as far as it used to, I guess.
But you're saying you're not monetizing
put it this
family
way,
deals?
I didn't have a governor's mansion. I had to mow my own lawn, and I was proud to do it. I like mowing my lawn. It was actually kind of nice. So, no, but what was the first part of that ridiculous question?
It was about your views on campaign finance reform, helping people get things done.
You want to, and there's three things wrong that have to be fixed. One of which is really almost impossible to fix. One is term limits, right? Make sure that these guys. You want to serve 18 years as a senator? Great. Cap it at 18, get these guys out of there. You want to do 12, whatever it is, I don't care what it is. But you have to give these guys a cap. And it's more than enough time for leadership to be in there. And it guarantees you're going to have a certain percentage of senators and congressmen when the margins are so narrow anyways, that are just going to kind of throw politics aside. You know why they finally reopened government? It was because my own senator, Jeanne Shaheen, a Democrat, who I disagree with on politically, but we get along. She said she's not running again. And she said, look, this is nuts. We have to have a conversation about health care. We have to take votes on this stuff. But you cannot keep going and not paying air traffic controllers and all this stuff. And because she wasn't running again, she wasn't so beholden maybe to the party line on the left, just like a lot of Republicans are beholden to a party line on the right. So no, I think term limits would be great. Number two is absolutely campaign finance reform. The main reason I didn't run for the U.S. Senate was because my race was that race is going to be a $100 million race. 95% of the money would come from outside of the state, have nothing to do with my brand, what my citizens wanted, what we really needed for the state of New Hampshire. It's just this colossal mess. It's dark money. It's these giant super PACs. McCain-Feingold was supposed to kind of correct campaign finance, but they had this massive unintended consequences of super PACs. It's awful. It's absolutely awful, and it means that so much of your message gets polarized with the party. So much of your message isn't really about what you're about, but what about the party brand is about, and so therefore you become beholden to it. So that would be crucial to fix that in some appreciable way. And the third one is a really hard one to fix, is gerrymandering, and it's real and it's awful. And we talked earlier today, I think what Texas is doing is terrible. I think what California's response is awful. I think what states have done for 30 years is terrible, right? You look at Illinois and Maryland and Massachusetts with these ridiculous things. The problem with gerrymandering, the real problem, it's almost impossible to undo. Only the states control where their districts are. And once one group has that kind of power, I can't foresee how it would be done that they would let that go. So unfortunately, while gerrymandering can't be done, I think the first two are absolutely critical to putting just enough independent mindedness and just enough opportunity for the civility, right, for the bipartisanship you need for them to feel confident that they're going to start moving forward and getting stuff done, and not just, this pendulum swing of Democrats get everything they want, then Republicans get everything they want, and back and forth and back and forth.
stick around. I want to ask you to ask another question, but let me just follow up real quickly. There is a Supreme Court ruling that sort of equated campaign finance with speech. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but that seems like a Supreme Court precedent seems like a hard
It is a hard thing. They made a
by.
mistake on that one, to be sure. They could bring it back, but the Supreme Court basically said people can give all this money to these advocacy groups and messaging groups. To limit that would be to limit speech. But when they're being used for political purposes, you can absolutely limit that. Why do we have then have no limits? Then be able to personally give any candidate $1 billion. Right? You can't have limits here, but no limits there, when they're all being used for the exact same purpose, just from a different 501c whatever, right? So that's where it gets convoluted, and I get what the court's saying, but what the court is really saying is, go back and fix your laws. Remember, the Supreme Court does not determine the law. They just determine how it should be enacted and interpreted. But Congress can always go back and change the law. They can always go back and change the law, or even the Constitution if they really want to and have to, and get it ratified. So there are pathways to fixing this thing that has, I mean, does anyone think that we need more money in politics? I mean, come on, right? As citizens, I think most of us say this stinks. I think I've talked to a lot of very large donors, and they're starting to realize how bad it is on both sides. It's costing them a fortune, right? I've talked to guys that have written, what's that? Both sides of the aisle, my friend. Trust me, both sides. So the politicians like it in Washington. The donors really, I think, are realizing that it doesn't create any sort of advantage, and it's just costing them a fortune. And I think America as a whole is getting just sick and tired, first off, of elections that go on for 18 months, 2.5 years sometimes. I mean, give me a break. We love our politics in New Hampshire, but good Lord. And it becomes just white noise after a while, right? It's like the endless stream of car commercials during your football games is a pleasant relief from politicians, you know, and consultants. And by the way, that's where the money's going. These consultants are thieves. I mean, they're such thieves that to all the political consultants. No, I don't apologize actually, but they just take so much of that money and put it in their pockets and run ads. So it's a bit of a scam, and I think everyone knows it. It's like the unspoken secret, but it's time to fix it. It's time to clean it up for all of our sakes.
It does sort of feel like, with the ballroom and perhaps some other examples, that donors have a big impact in the current administration.
Well, they have a big impact in every administration.
You don't think this is more outsized in scale than past administrations?
In terms of donor influence?
In terms of the impact
No.
of billionaires or
No, are you saying
mega wealthy?
Obama and Biden weren't impacted by the billionaires around them? Are you joking? Oh, my God.
I didn't say that. I'm asking you if you think...
It's more?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
not necessarily. Look, no, I don't. It's always there, guys. And it's been there for, I would argue, at least the last 15 to 20 years. I don't really know. I can't speak to it too much before 2005 and 2000. I really wasn't involved at all before then. But the billionaires have always been involved. And look, when a donor gives you money, I've gotten money from a lot of wealthy donors. It isn't like, oh, I better do what he said. That's not the mentality at all. Those folks give me money or give a politician money because they want to make sure that politician wins because that politician is already agreeing with a lot of what they want in platform and strategy. But it's not like billionaires or my big donors would call me up as governor and say, Governor, I gave you a lot of money. You better do X, Y, and Z. I'm telling you, that just didn't happen. Maybe other governors, but I honestly don't think so. That's really not the way it works. So there is a lot of money. There's a lot of money that has influence in that campaign. But no, I don't think for a second that Trump is more influence. Why does he need to, of all people, he's a billionaire. He doesn't need to be influenced. He's not going to be influenced by, do you think anybody tells Donald Trump what to do? No, I'm telling you guys, no. And I'm not saying that Biden or Obama did, and I'm not here, and again, I'm not necessarily defending that, but I'm telling you, it really doesn't work like that. If there's anyone on planet Earth that runs by his own compass, that doesn't listen to people, his own family, his own advisors, it's Donald Trump, his own donors, and his own party. He did tariffs, for God's sakes. No Republican really wanted this tariff scheme to go forward. That was his own idea and his own creation with a couple guys I'm not saying his credit because I disagree with it, but he believed in it. He's believed in terrorists for many, many years. He was going to go there. The Epstein files, all the Republicans said, we're opening that up, right? No, he didn't really want to do that. Now he's kind of being forced to do it. So, no, he really, I disagree with him on a lot of things, but make no mistake, the guy, to his chaotic strategy, runs by his own compass.
Thank you.
I have one more question before I refill the well of recommendations. This is from Mark from Leawood. How do you view the increase in presidential power as it potentially conflicts with states' rights and autonomy?
Yeah, that's the big problem, I think, happening. And I don't like where this is going. Technically, it hasn't. The administration hasn't violated the Supreme Court's rulings or anything like that yet, and all that sort of thing. But I don't like the consolidation of power. I think Congress needs to step up, and it isn't just a Trump thing. It's the governor. Look, what's the motto of New Hampshire?
Live free or die.
Damn straight it is. Live free or die. That's right. And it's not just 4 cool words on a license plate. It's really how we do it in New Hampshire, right? It's limited government, low taxes, local control, individual responsibility. Those are the cores of what we're about. And the discipline of being a governor, especially in a place like New Hampshire, Republican or Democrat, is not consolidating your power, is believing in cities and towns. Even when I had cities and towns that were very liberal-leaning. And some of my Republican colleagues in the House would be like, all right, we're going to pass a law that makes sure these guys can't do that anymore in these liberal towns in their schools. And I said, no. No, I disagree with those towns are doing. I think what they're doing is a mistake. But like anybody, you let them make the mistake. It's their voters. As a governor, do I know what's best for that school district over their parents and the citizens that are voting for that town budget and doing that? No, you have to let the cities and the towns and the locals have that empowerment to make good decisions and bad.
Okay, so you're sort of gobbling up my next question.
Sorry.
Because, of course, I didn't share my questions with you. So what I plan to ask you is that New Hampshire is kind of like a unique state in terms of how hyper-local politics is and how involved, like, per capita, your average resident is.
Yeah, we have very high voter turnout, very higher engagement. Yeah.
Is some of that like transferable? I mean, not every state is going to be New Hampshire, but what can other states, what can people in any other state or nationally learn from the New Hampshire experiment?
A lot of it is transferable, but I've talked to a lot of governors because they're like, how do you guys do this? How do you do this? And when I explained to them, like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that because it would mean less power for the governor, less power for the legislature. So at its core, we have no sales tax. We have no income tax. We have no inheritance tax. We have no, I don't know, pick your tax that you guys have here. We don't have any of that.
What do you have, high property taxes?
We have, the one thing we have is property tax, right? And so why is that? What's the silver lining there? Because I, as a governor, can say nothing about your property tax. None of it goes to the state. It all is handled locally. What happens in your schools is up to the parents in the town meeting. I don't determine the curriculum, really. I mean, a couple rare exceptions, the legislature's passed stuff, but we don't determine curriculum for every school. You do. I don't determine what roads are going to be paved necessarily, on the local level. You do. I don't determine where your money goes for the wastewater treatment plants.
Wait, what does the governor do in New Hampshire?
Right? We make sure, yeah. So look, we set up a $7 billion budget. We manage Medicaid, we manage major services and all that sort of thing. But the key is the taxes you pay, you have complete control over, so you engage, right? You go to town meeting. And when you go to town meeting, if you've ever, or you go to your school board, right? And there are some pretty tough arguments there. Who are you arguing with? You're arguing with your friends and neighbors. You're arguing with the guy down the street. And so there's a level of fighting it out tough, winning some and losing some at that localized level, and knowing that, okay, I got to wait at the bus stop with my kids tomorrow with my neighbor who I just got in an argument over recycling about. It might sound corny and hokey, but everyone gets involved, and it keeps it civil. It keeps it civil. And so when it comes to elections, regardless of what party, we have a few more Republicans than Democrats registered, but a lot of undeclared and independents. And what you see on the same ballot, like my entire federal delegation in New Hampshire is Democrat. Yet the House, the Senate, and the governor and the executive council are all run by Republicans. And they were all voted on the same day for the most part. Why? Because it's not about the party. It's about getting involved, engaging with good candidates, demanding a high quality of candidate, and then we jump around on the ticket a bit, right? And that's exactly the way it should be. Can that be transferred? Absolutely it can. It means getting rid of some power at a centralized level out of your capital city, more checks and balances. Within the capital, we have this funky thing called the Executive Council. No other, bear with me for the history lesson. 1680. King George I creates this thing for all the colonies to have 5 individuals to check the power of the governor. No contract can be authorized without this 3 votes of these 5-member councils. Well, over time, every state has gotten rid of theirs. New Hampshire empowered theirs. And I was a counselor for a while. Every contract, over $15,000, every state contract, whether it's a $1 billion Medicaid contract or a landscaping contract, gets debated in open and public meeting every other Wednesday in New Hampshire. And you can come and you can watch it. And you know, when we bring up the commissioners, right? The attorney general's there. The commissioners and the secretaries of every department are there. And you know where they sit? In the audience. You as a member of the public can come in and sit right down next to the Secretary of Education and talk to them if you want. No appointment necessary, no lobbyist involved. It works.
Do you worry that New Hampshire will lose that it'll fade?
No, because it works so darn well. We love it. Both Republicans and Democrats understand it. They cherish it. It keeps people empowered. It keeps people engaged. There's no behind closed door stuff, or at least minimal. So it really does work. So a lot of that can be transferred, but it would be major changes to a lot of these states. The best thing to do is not do things to suppress the vote. The most important thing is that people engage in democracy. They keep going out voting. And democracy is not being eroded. Democracy is not being threatened. I would argue democracy is as strong as ever before because people are engaging. Because sometimes Democrats win and sometimes Republicans win. And people are using, whether it's social media or other means, I have trouble with social media, but they're using it to have a voice, to participate in the process. And you've seen some of the highest voter turnouts nationally, not as high as New Hampshire, but people are still staying engaged. As soon as those voter turnouts start plummeting and getting suppressed because of gerrymandering, that's when you start worrying, because that means people are giving up. And just like David said, the tyranny of apathy. I love that line, David. He's the snappiest dresser in the room. And he's blind, for God's sakes. Cynthia, it's amazing. But when people start getting not engaged, that's when you worry that things aren't going well.
So there are probably a lot of people in this room who disagree with your assessment about whether things are in peril, and maybe some people who do agree also. But what you're saying is you think it's possible for America or any country to get to a place where things are super perilous. You just don't think that's where this country is at right now.
No, I think not democratically, not with our. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. The former President Bush told me a story, and I've gotten to know former George W. Bush a little bit, and I had the same conversation around 2022. What's going to happen to the party? I was up talking to him at Kennebunkport, and we've gotten to know each other. I respect him a lot, and just don't agree with him on everything, but respect him a lot. And he said, look, he said, Gov, I think I was 50 at the time. I'm 50. And he goes, Gov, you might only be 50 years old. And I'm like, that sounds old, by the way. But he goes, you might only be 50 years old, but he said, you got to look back in history to have the optimism that I have. And he said, we went through a civil war. This country was torn apart, but the institutions of our checks and balances, Congress, states' rights, all of this, our Supreme Court, the institutions stood strong. They didn't get torn apart. They didn't change fundamentally. World War I, World War II. The example he gave that really opened my eyes, he said, in the 60s, 68, you had some of the greatest voices of this country, of the world, literally assassinated in front of our eyes. With MLK and RFK and JFK had just been shot. And people said, the American experiment is over. But the institutions stood strong. And then we go through the 80s, you go through 9/11, you go through a pandemic. The institutions have not fundamentally changed. If they were to change, and if people were to start disengaging and voter numbers would go down, he said then you'd worry. But the institutions of this country that we can rely on into perpetuity, that's what matters. And he finished by saying, you got to remember, bad leadership comes and goes. He didn't say bad leadership, but he used a different word. He said bad leadership comes and goes, but our institutions will remain strong. And as long as that's happening, there's optimism that, you might not like the current president or your current governor or your current school board member, but guess what? Eventually they'll be out of office. And the institutions that were there yesterday, will be there tomorrow, and there'll be a process, and folks will engage, and you'll get a different result. Maybe one that you like, maybe one that you don't like. You win some, you lose some. You run better candidates. You keep going out there. But it's not like this amazing experiment of the United States is dwindling. If there's a crisis in this country, it's a fiscal crisis. We have a major fiscal car crash coming in about 8 or 9 years.
You mean the end of Social Security?
Yeah. I mean, it won't be the end, but the crisis of Social Security, Medicare, all becoming unfunded liabilities at about the same time. Our debt will hit about 40+ trillion. Our interest rates alone are already, already over $1 trillion. We pay $1 trillion in interest right now to banks. Imagine what this country could do with an extra $1 trillion. Medicaid wouldn't be a problem. Medicare wouldn't be a problem. I tell my Democrat friends all the time, guys, fix the budget and we have more money than we'll ever know what to do with for all these programs that you want.
Think of how many Senate races you could run for $1 trillion.
So that's the biggest thing I think people need to really keep an eye on. What's going to happen to us fiscally, the hyperinflation that would result of this, the massive borrowing that drives that inflation, and why do I worry and panic about inflation so much? Inflation is the worst tax on the poor you can possibly institute. A lot of us in this room can handle a little inflation. It stinks. We get through it. But a low-income family, they need to turn on the lights and buy milk and gasoline as much as anybody else, and they can't handle another 5, 10, 20, 30%
Every dollar
inflation.
counts. Yeah. We have about 10 minutes left total for our program tonight, so I want to make sure we get a couple more questions from the
Give me a
audience.
softball. I got to win the room back.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I got softballs for you, Governor. Okay, so
all right.
no time in
Or
America.
just serve more alcohol. One or the other.
This is also a reminder, more restaurant reviews, less groaning out there. So no time in American politics has been perfect. But Governor, if you had to pick a golden age, when would it be?
Politically?
Politically.
1776.
Or civically.
Yeah.
Okay, that was
No,
like, fun. That was good.
I'm a good history guy. I think post-World War II, World War II is something that we have to constantly remind ourselves how valuable and of a lesson it was for this country. It reminded everybody across the board what was important in this country, what it took to build this country. There was a lot of bipartisanship. We were coming into the point, it was a tough time for civil rights, but we were coming in the point where people are realizing we're finally going to do something about this. Didn't happen until the 60s that we started making serious movements about it. But I mean, just off the top of my head, we had spent a lot of money, but there was still a sense of saving and individual responsibility. There was less government intruding in our lives and less big regulation and less Washington. And things worked really well. We could build the foundation of this country at that time, and we could do it in a smart way. Entrepreneurship was off the charts. Capitalism and the ability to grow and be the best you can be in this country was there. Not that that isn't there now, but I would argue politically. What's that? What was the marginal tax rate? I don't know. What was the marginal tax rate in the 50s?
Yeah, just a reminder, we're going to write down our
Okay.
questions.
Yeah.
But okay, that's enough. Thank you. We're going to write down
I don't know
our
the marginal
questions.
tax rate,
Yeah.
but
This is not a
politically
quiz.
speaking, there was a lot of bipartisanship. There was a lot of opportunity. And that
Okay.
is awful. Come to New Hampshire. By the way, if you're worried about marginal tax rates, you should all rethink your lives and move to
All
New
right,
Hampshire.
I have one more question for you.
We have the marginal tax rate conversation literally every time I've been here, and I appreciate it. But maybe we could do it outside afterwards.
We're
We have time for
obsessed
two more
with marginal
questions.
tax rates
Jets
here.
and the Sharks.
Yeah. So you stated that there are solutions to the current polarization taking place in our country. What have you seen work in everyday lives if people have family members that they differ with politically? What solutions have you seen during your time as governor?
Well, I kind of go back to what I was saying. I think the best examples of bipartisanship and civility and what's working is when it's local, right? Get involved locally. Believe me, your school, people, let me take a step back. People think my dad, because he was governor and White House chief of staff, my brother was a senator, they say, oh, your dad got you involved in politics. No. Who was the first person in my family that was elected up to office? My mother. Why? I'll give you a hint. She had 8 kids. So what did she run for? Damn straight. School board, because she wanted to make sure nothing is more impactful to your family and your family's future, politically, I would argue, and where you can have an impact, than the school board. My dad was an engineer from Tufts University. What does he run for? Planning board, because he's an engineer. He's going to help design and plan the town. So you find your skill, you find your thing at the local level, and you engage. And that's where those things are going to have way more impact in your family's future and opportunity and well-being than the President of the United States. I'm not saying to minimize that, but understand, we hear about the President, we hear about national politics, but what really impacts your family's life and future is what's happening locally. And that's where you can have the most impact. So stick with that. Believe in it. Engage in it. Encourage others to do so. Run for those offices. You win some. You lose some. You volunteer at the food bank. You volunteer for nonprofits. You keep continuing with groups like this. You have to find your thing and stay engaged. And most commonly, you do that. And you have to impart that on your kids. But it's hard to impart to your kids to get engaged if you're only worrying about national politics. They go, well, I'm not running for the U.S. Senate, Dad. Like, what are we talking about? But if you do it locally and set that example, that's how a lot of this stuff starts to get fixed. Little by little, piece by piece, town by town. And that's where I think the best examples are. And that's why, on a bipartisan standpoint, I believe in governors. I believe in mayors. I don't know about New York. We'll see what happens with that guy. But I'm sure, look, Mom Donnie, I tell my Republican friends all the time, I'm sure he's a super nice guy. I have no doubt he's a nice guy. And what I always say the best part about being governor was the stories. And whether you're the head of a family or a business or you're running for, whatever it is, be curious about the other person's story. Don't enter a conversation with something to say. Enter the conversation excited to listen. And we say that, but do we do it? We talk about what empathy is. Do you practice it? Do you actively practice empathy? Do you go, boy, I'm about to have a conversation with AOC. I know we disagree on everything politically, but she's a good person, I'm sure. But what's her background? What's her story? What was her upbringing that got her to the point where she believes that all this big government stuff might be a better answer than entrepreneurship and free market capitalism? And if she doesn't convince me, I'll ask her to keep talking, right? Be empathetic. Have an open ear. Share those stories. And when you do that, well, everything opens up in terms of civility and possibilities. It's hard to do that in D.C. because they're so, I wouldn't say you're removed from them. They're removed from you. But you can do it in your community. You can do it at a local level, and you can engage in that process. And if everyone kind of re-engages, I don't care how extreme you are on one side or the other, if everyone re-engages with their conversations with that mentality, the sky's the limit, guys, in terms of what we can do in bringing back this process.
I have one more question, and then Ryan, tell me if you think we have time.
Hey, you keep plying me with whiskey. I'll stay here all night. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I want to look ahead a little bit to the future. It does feel like there's one, every generation and sometimes every century has a major development, the printing press, the industrial age, whatever it might be, that can transform society. And it feels like in the last century and a half or so, we've had a lot of those moments that have accelerated the transformations of society. AI feels like the big one right now, and feels like one where you need lawmakers whose median age is less than 80, or maybe less than 53, and true bipartisanship to figure out how to regulate it, how to use it, on balance for good, how to have guardrails on it. Like, how is that going to work?
So here's the good news. That is a very bipartisan issue. I've talked to folks on both sides of the aisle. Everyone agrees there needs to be a good structure and regulation. We have to understand it, but we have to move super quick because it's moving faster than us. So what I would argue, it's moving fast. I don't want to say be concerned, be cautiously optimistic about what it can do. Whether you agree with their politics or not, you should listen to those who have kind of created this stuff, and that they're warning. They're the ones on the forefront of warning people about its power, right? The head of Google, the PayPal bros, whatever you want to call them, all these guys who invest in all these companies, they're the ones going, we need regulation. We don't want to be unregulated. We're creating these monster computers, and they're saying to the rest of the world, you don't appreciate how amazingly good they are, how fast they're getting, and how much faster they're going to get. Now, there will be an interesting aspect of AI, I believe. I think there's going to be a massive economic crash around it. I think they're investing hundreds of billions, and it'll hit trillions of dollars in the next few years. There'll be winners and losers, like anything, just like the dot-coms, right? There were dot-com booms and busts, but the internet was strong. Social media, boom and bust, but social media is in our everyday lives. AI, there'll be booms and busts economically, but it'll come through. But yes, Washington needs to create regulation and structure around it. But at the end of the day, by the way, here's another, don't wait for Washington to take care of you on AI. Don't wait for any politician to solve your problems. Government is not here to solve your problems, right? You have to take individual responsibility at some level. Government is here to create guidelines and opportunity. And you create these guidelines of structure and then say, here's what my strategy in New Hampshire is to say, I don't know what your story is. I don't know what your business needs are. I don't know what your family's educational needs are. But I'm going to create like an education. Use that as an example. As many doors of opportunity for you and your kids. Homeschool, private school, charter school, the best public school in the country, the whole thing. And then you do you. Live free or die, man. You pick the door that best fits your needs. So don't wait for the government to solve the AI thing, right? We all have to take some individual responsibility in terms of how we use it, how we interact it with our businesses. Government has to come in with the regulations. There'll be a lot of opportunity there, a lot of entrepreneurship opportunity. I mean, this younger generation right now has amazing opportunity with AI. They can basically create any business at home at the age of 15 that they want with these computers that can really just create magic. I mean, effectively. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And that's an amazing entrepreneurship opportunity for this country. And America will lead it. We'll be battling China. Europe is way, way behind. They're just going to be left in the dust. And I almost feel bad for the Europeans, but they've created their own problem with too much like this left-wing progressive regulation that just doesn't allow that innovation. The Middle East is really investing in this stuff, so don't ignore them. But America is going to lead this charge as long as we, again, create the regulations and the guidelines and allow the opportunity for it to flow for every American. So I think it's really cool stuff. It's exciting. It is a game changer. But it's kind of, I mean, what not this country, but what our lifestyle is going to look like with the invention of AI. Healthcare is going to go wildly positive. I think we're going to cure cancer. I know we're going to cure cancer. We're going to cure Alzheimer's. People are going to live longer. There's a real challenge to that, by the way, right? Because it's very expensive when people live longer when they're retiring at the age of 65.
And the workforce is
right?
going to change.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of changing dynamics in this country, but nothing to be afraid of. Something to be optimistic and dive into head first.
Okay, the eternal optimist, Governor Chris Sununu. Thank you very much. You hang tight. You hang tight. I've been asked to hang tight. We're going to turn our attention to the podium, and I really do want to thank you for this conversation over the course of the last hour.
Perfect. I'm glad you're talking about the future generations because we have a question from a youngish person. What was the civic spark that brought you into service, and how can future generations find their civic spark?
Okay, here's the truth. My civic spark was selfishness. So I was an engineer. My son was in the 4th grade. I was an engineer from MIT, and I could barely keep up with Common Core math. It was so bizarre. I said, well, this is weird. I was running my own business, and there was a lot of regulation around it. And I was like, man, I follow the rules. I'm a big believer in following the rules. You can change the rules legislatively, but the ones that are there, you got to follow. And I said, boy, there's a lot of regulation pounding down on my business, and we could barely make a profit, a dime. And I said, well, this has to change. So selfishly, I said, well, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to run for office and try to do something about it. So there's more flexibility in schools. So businesses don't have this massive, burdensome regulation that I was experiencing it firsthand. It didn't make sense. And I figured if I was helping myself and helping my community in those ways, then it was going to help a lot of other people. So it's like I tell people all the time, when it comes to your vote, be selfish about your vote. You should vote exactly what is in the best and sole interest of your family or your business or whatever you want. Not what's in the interest of somebody else or what somebody else tells you to vote for. Make your own decisions. Be selfish. It's large-scale game theory. If everyone votes massively in their own self-interest, the whole system rises, right? It's when you start second-guessing yourself or doing something in someone else's interest because of this and that, and we overthink it. No. Be aggressive. You want to change something? Go run for office. Find something to run for. Go volunteer, whatever it is. So, because not only is it incredibly fulfilling, but that's actually how it's supposed to work. So I think in the case of politics, it's good to be selfish for yourself and for your family. And if we all do that, again, theory says that the system gets better.
Okay, first of all.
Crickets.
Okay.
Crickets, holy cow.
Tonight's event serves as the launch point for a year-long focus on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. This milestone celebration, will include an ambitious full season of programming designed to bridge divides, elevate civic engagement, and position Kansas City as a national leader in civic innovation. To learn a little more about our exciting next season, please turn your attention to the screen.
2026 is America's 250th birthday, and APS is marking it with our most ambitious season yet.
We're announcing the season tonight so you can see the full arc of the year. Get excited! Get the big dates on your calendars early, and we can build momentum to get more people in the room.
We're excited to share our signature programs. Why is everything so expensive? Unpacking the high cost of living will kick off the season in March, followed by our student-led program in April. Our Civics Education Initiative brings 85 Kansas City high schoolers together to design a program that matters to them. This year, they created Breaking the Ice on Immigration Enforcement and Federal Power, a grounded conversation about immigration.
June 18th is Self-Evident Truths, Grading the Declaration of Independence's Legacy at 250, where panelists literally grade our progress or lack of since our founding document. And in the fall, APS will host our first ever national conference, The State of Political Parties. Are we incentivized to be divided? This multi-day convening will showcase Kansas City nationally and explore the future of the Democratic and Republican parties, as well as incentives that fuel polarization.
Beyond our signature events, we're adding more opportunities for APS members to connect with each other. We're excited to launch a new monthly book club with Rainy Day Books.
After a hugely successful member trip to Portugal, led by Ambassador Katz, we're excited to announce we're hosting another member trip to Portugal this fall.
The 250th anniversary of our founding is particularly special to us at APS because it is a reminder that our country has always been a nation of plurality, a nation of competing interests, and a nation of disagreement. Our American spirit is firmly planted in the tension of those ideas. Coming together to embrace these differences is our work. You can find dates, details, and registration information by visiting americanpublicsquare.org/events.
But we are only as strong as the people in the room. So join us, invite someone you disagree with, and be part of these conversations about the issues that affect us most all year long.
So in closing tonight, I have taken the liberty to spend just a minute or two to share some thoughts. Alex de Tocqueville came to the United States in the 19th century, and he wrote favorably about the fact that American citizens, one, had individual liberty, but they also had a sense of community or association, as he called it. This is essentially what we are trying to do with American Public Square. This is our 11th year, and during that time, we've addressed virtually every controversial issue in our community and in our country. We've tried to do it not as advocates, but as bridge builders, trying to get everyone, including ourselves, to learn how to not only listen to views that we don't share, but to actually hear each other and explain why we believe what we believe. I grew up in a home where we were told that just because you couldn't solve the problems plaguing our community did not relieve you of the responsibility of trying. That is what APS stands for, and in our own imperfect way, with the unselfish and generous support we receive from all of you, we will continue to do our best to fulfill that mission in a manner that makes you proud to be supporters. Good night, thank you very much, and hope to see you next year.
Thank you, everyone.